This is like inspired by the panel suggestions that people put in. And I mentioned on Wednesday during Cecily's thing that until you reach the eighth bhumi, you're going to experience disturbing thoughts until you reach the eighth bhumi. Now, interestingly enough, the Dzogchen doesn't so much talk about bhumis because bhumis really have to do with levels of attainment, and that's not what's prioritized in Dzogchen. In Dzogchen, what's prioritized is the recognition of your nature, not the attainment of levels. And so the way they talk about the what happens in the eighth bhumi is they talk about equipoise and post-equipoise. Now, I had an interesting chat with Mary about this, Mary Keating, and that is that you should try to avoid using big words. But when you use smaller words, you have to give more explanation. So, what is equipoise and post-equipoise? So it's basically equipoise is like when things are in balance, when everything is in balance, And what's post-equipoise? That's when things aren't in balance. I'll explain a little bit further. And I'll give an example out of my own experience. It's actually said, you're not supposed to expose your experiences to other people, But believe me, I don't have any realizations to reveal, just confusion. So the other day, when I was waking up, and it happens to me fairly often, I felt kind of depressed, And this particular depression came with a soundtrack, an orchestra, and a commentary. And what was it saying? It was saying, like, you're feeling depressed, You're just an ordinary person, You're not able to stay in the nature of mind. I know this is a request, you see. You're not able to stay in the nature of mind, Stop fooling people, What the hell do you know about Dzogchen? This is really long. It's a quite long commentary. You should stop this nonsense and tell them to follow a graduated path, And what I noticed was there's this proliferation of dissatisfactions. This isn't a big word, another big word, proliferation. It just builds, There's one little thing, and then there's a reaction to that little thing, then there's a reaction to that little thing. It just builds and builds and builds. Endless dissatisfactions. Those are plural, dissatisfactions, Now, that's when the very first teaching of the Buddha was about this. And it's called the fourfold truths of noble beings, which you might know as the Four Noble Truths. But okay, so when he was describing this, we translate the word he used, which is dukkha. That has happened for a long time, and most people, if you ask them what dukkha is, they'll tell you it's suffering. It's not, actually. It's not the word for suffering. And what is actually the word for, the way that it's explained, is something that's wonky, something that's not quite right. Do you understand? Like something that's not running smoothly. And the example they give is of an axle of a cart that doesn't quite fit the hole in the wheel. So the whole thing is quite... Do you understand? Not running smoothly. It's difficult. So there I am with this soundtrack, and complete with the little violin, you know, the emotions, and so what's the answer? You know, what did I do? What's the answer? I decided to take control. I can recommend this, but you need to be kind of clued in here. Usually, we try to take control of the display. Do you understand? We try to take control of the feeling of this dialogue. We try to take control of that. We try to stop the thoughts. We try to stop the feeling. That's usually that's how we interpret taking control. But instead, and this is I sent this in the email, when there is no grasping, thoughts have no support, and liberation is automatic. These 3 lines are to point to such a different way of being, you know. When there is no grasping. So when I ceased to grasp at the soundtrack, it had no support. Do you understand? The thoughts had no support. What happened? They just freed themselves. So basically, how you seize control is you're controlling the experiencer. You're controlling this grasping, right? And when you do that, when you stop the grasping, when you stop grasping after the soundtrack, when you stop grasping after it, there is no self to defend or to criticize. It's just a soundtrack. Do you get it? When you just leave it, there's no self to defend or to criticize. Thoughts are just thoughts. Feelings are just feelings, you know. It's only when there's grasping that there's this welcoming and unwelcoming attitude towards any. Hold on, sorry, hold on. Right. Yes, okay. So, okay. So it's only when there's grasping, that there's agreeable and disagreeable. If you get this, you are free. You know, when there is no grasping, thoughts have no support, and liberation is automatic. So you aim this proliferation. It's even hard to bloody pronounce it. So you end the proliferation by releasing grasping, by just rest. Not even relax, just rest. And then what? You're free. free, free, free. Not blocking the flow, just releasing the grasping. And you release the experiences, release all the experiences into basic space. And it's my greatest wish to be able to convey to you what it means to experience the basic space. When the grasping has ceased and there's just this flow of things coming from nowhere, going nowhere. This feeling of basic space. You can get this as we sit together. I'm keeping an eye on the time here, this is going on a bit long. When you're like this, whatever arises is spacious. Any criticism, any praise, it's all in this space. You become very spacious. Okay, that's it for a little while. I'll shut up for a minute. What do we do? Press the bell. See, if you just continue like you ordinarily do, you know, you'd be stuck. You have to take control. You have to release the grasping and rest in basic space. So it's not hard. There's nothing special about it. Except for this spaciousness. It's just very ordinary. So the basic space is not something you try to hold on to. That's grasping. The basic space is simply releasing the grasping. So whatever the soundtrack, just release the grasping at it. You don't have to overcome it. You don't have to overcome your mind. You simply release the grasping. There's no method. There's no qualification. There's no stage. There's no level of attainment. And as you haven't reached the 8th bhumi yet, all the shit still keeps coming back. So what? So what? It's just a display. It's just a display. Did it work? So in the Dzogchen, particularly like when they talk about the Drogyal teachings, these secret teachings, they're said to be these, what they call them 4 visions. It's not like 4 stages like you have in the bhumis, you know, like all these different stages. But basically the 4th stage, or the 4th vision, has to do with when grasping completely collapses, and all appearances cease to be solidified as something other than my experience. At that stage, you're enlightened. Okay, so I release those of you who still have some money left in January to go shopping.